All right, so we're going to be playing around with what is called a duotone. So this is a sample image. Any of your images with a lighter background will work great for this. So that or if you've got a darker background and your subject's wearing something light, as long as there's a big contrast between your subject and the background. So we've done a little bit with gradient maps before, but this is really taking it to the next step. So um, adding a gradient map adjustment layer. You can click on the button here, or you can always come down here and choose gradient map. Make sure it is gradient map, not just gradient map. Okay, so it automatically, most of the time, goes to a black and white. There's a lot of presets, so I just clicked on that gradient color. So a lot of presets that you can come in here and kind of play with as well. It's up to you, like you get to choose how you want this to look. But what we do want to do to make sure that it's still not too completely abstract is we want it to go from darker colors to lighter colors. So um, making sure that we keep that intact. You can use all kinds of presets in here that you're kind of interested in. If you see something that looks interesting to you, is kind of like a jumping off point. Um, or you can completely just choose your own colors. So let's see. I'm going to go in here to the greens, and I'm going to choose this one that goes from darker to lighter. Now, if I want to make that more intense, change the colors up, these down here are how we control the colors. The amount that we're shifting between here, the intensity from light to dark. These colors are already pretty close, so I'm going to double click on this color, and I can make this color a little bit darker to increase the contrast between the area um, in which these colors are being controlled. Okay, so whenever we do this, these colors will end up at the very end like this, and this is kind of the look that we get. Now, to create a spectrum to where it goes to a completely dark area and another lighter color, possibly to play with there, we can add more of a spectrum of color. So we just bring those in a little bit to add a little bit of room out here. You can see that the mouse turns into a little finger. When I click out here, it adds another color. I can double click here, and on the left hand side, we want it to be dark. So we can make it all the way completely black, or we can just make it very dark. So we can see, okay, that adds in the depth of some shadows there. And then we can add a little bit of color to this if we add another dot here and double click. Let's say it starts to fade to maybe a little bit more of a yellowish color there in the background. That looks pretty good to me. But if we want it to be more yellow, yes, less yellow, we can kind of change up that intensity there. Now, this is going to be different for every photo because the spectrum of where light and dark areas in your photo are will change up. But we can make this show up a little bit more by continuing to drag things this way so we can see it shows up in the bright spots on her skin as well, to add that in there. And then let's see if we want to continue to make this a little bit darker. If we like those dark shadows, you can see we can make it to a complete black if we want to as well. So we've got more of a full spectrum by adding in those two on the ends. We've got more than just two colors being shifted between. We've got more of a full spectrum. And again, you can continue to play around with this. We've got more of a bluish color going from one blue color to another. You can come in here and change this up and say, you know what? I like this tone, but I'm going to make it a little bit more green. So it's going to shift more from blue to green and then all the way to yellow. So there's lots to play around with on that. So have fun with that, play with that, and get a good example turned in with one of the portrait photos that you have taken. The more simple the background, the more you're going to have this kind of gradient look to it. If it's a complicated background, then it's going to have a lot going on. We want to make sure your subject stands out. Make sure when you submit, it is a JPEG.